Bonjour, hello. Canadians do not need someone who will govern by making it easier for billionaire oligarchs, someone who will shift wealth from workers to the rich, someone who will cut services that we as Canadians rely on. We know that that's what Pierre Poilievre will do, but with today's cabinet announcements, it's clear it's also what Mark Carney plans to do. Let's be clear, Mark Carney and his government are not progressive. And quite frankly, looking at Mark Carney, his agenda, and today's announcements, Mark Carney could just as well have been a conservative. This cabinet is about as conservative as a vision as you can get for this country. Les Canadiennes et les Canadiens n'ont pas besoin d'un premier ministre qui gouvernera en facilitant la vie aux milliardaires, en transférant la richesse des travailleurs et des travailleuses vers les plus riches, en coupant les services dont les gens dépendent. On sait que c'est exactement ce que Pierre Poilievre fera s'il est au pouvoir. Or, avec l'annonce du cabinet d'aujourd'hui, il est évident que Mark Carney suivra la même voie. Soyons clairs, Mark Carney et son gouvernement ne sont pas progressistes. Et en regardant son programme et l'annonce d'aujourd'hui, Mark Carney aurait tout aussi bien pu être conservateur. Ce cabinet incarne une vision aussi conservatrice que possible pour ce pays. You just have to look at who is left out. First and foremost, the one and only Liberal leadership candidate, Karina Gould, that called out Mark Carney for what he really is. Conservative light. Let's look at what Mark Carney has done today. He shrunk the cabinet. He left out status of women, labor, Crown Indigenous relations, official languages. You couldn't get a clear message from Mark Carney that labor issues, workers' issues don't matter. You couldn't get a clearer issue that the status of women, that official languages, that the critical commitment to Indigenous reconciliation through a standalone Crown Indigenous Relations Ministry don't matter. Through today's announcement, Mark Carney has also made it clear that he has an agenda of cuts. And this cabinet sends the message that this is what matters to him most. A lot of Canadians don't actually know who Mark Carney is. Canadians know that Pierre Poilievre is a Donald Trump wannabe. Mark Carney, in the words of his own liberal leadership contender, is a conservative light or even a conservative wannabe. There is nothing that we've seen in what he has said and what we have seen today that shows anything else in the fact that he is a conservative light or conservative wannabe prime minister. This is a guy who has helped hollow out Canada. He was a key part of Brookfield Asset Management at a time where they avoided paying billions of dollars in taxes. Let's understand, when it comes to taxes, this is Mark, what's a billion, Carney? Billions of dollars in tax avoidance by a company that he helped run. Taxes that the rest of us have had to pay because his company avoided paying them. When he was vice chair of Brookfield, they used offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Panama, as well as other tax schemes to avoid paying billions in taxes. Money that could have gone to funding healthcare, roads, and even tariff relief. How can we trust someone to make billionaires pay their fair share when his work at Goldman Sachs or Brookfield was doing the exact opposite of that? Mark Carney, just like Pierre Poilievre, is siding with the ultra-rich by reversing a small increase to the capital gains tax, a tax that only affects the richest 0.13%, because that's who Mark Carney believes needs the help. Today's cabinet announcement is a clear sign of a race to the right. The Liberals under Mark Carney are going to try to out-conservative the Conservatives. Let's discuss a little bit more about who isn't there. We've heard about Karina Gould. We know of other cabinet ministers that have been shut out. And then we know of who's back. Steve McKinnon, le ministre responsable pour le bris de grève. Si les libéraux pensent qu'ils peuvent reconstruire leurs relations avec le mouvement syndical, comment peuvent-ils garder au cabinet quelqu'un qui a forcé des travailleurs et des travailleuses en grève à retourner au travail? Quelqu'un devrait demander aux débardeurs de Montréal ou encore aux travailleurs de poste s'ils font confiance à Mark Carney pour leur offrir une entente juste. François-Philippe Champagne, Or Francois-Philippe Champagne, who was functionally created in a boardroom lab. He let grocery prices soar. He allowed for further consolidation in our telecom industry, and then pretended to ask nicely on the grocery front for grocery giants to bring down prices. He refused the NDP proposal for price controls on grocery essentials. He also approved the Rogers-Shaw merger, sending cell and internet prices even higher, despite the Competition Bureau urging him not to do that. If Mark Carney thinks asking billionaires nicely is the solution to inflation or rampant income inequality, he has another thing coming. Canadian workers know better. And then there's also Marco Mendicino, appointed as chief of staff. His interim chief of staff, who decided not to run because he felt that a liberal government that has shipped weapons to Israel, that has just fundamentally leveled Gaza, wasn't supportive enough. He opposed the tenuous ceasefire that would have saved lives. What sort of message does this send to people here in Canada? Canadians who want a prime minister that will stand up for peace and justice. Does Mark Carney also oppose a ceasefire in Gaza? Carney's choices today expose his values. New Democrats will always choose the Canadian people over billionaire tax avoiders. It's a shame Mark Carney won't. At a time when Canadians need someone willing to stand up to Trump and his billionaire oligarch buddies in the US, this group is waving the white flag when it comes to fighting income inequality here at home. Only Jagmeet Singh and the NDP will make the billionaires pay their fair share to fund the services you, your family, Canadians rely on. New Democrats won't sit by. We're standing up for workers who are worried about their jobs. We're standing up for the public services that Canadians deserve. We're opposing the Carney-Poilievre cuts. We're opposing the Carney-Poilievre repeal of the capital gains. We're opposing the Carney-Poilievre politics that have led us to this place today. Only the NDP will stand up for progressive values and a progressive agenda. Only the NDP will stand up for working people, for Indigenous peoples, for women's rights, for the services Canadians need, for fairness for everyone. It's clear that once they get to know Mark Carney, they'll see that they can't count on him for any of that. Let's be clear, whether it's Pierre Poilievre or Mark Carney, they're not part of the solution. They are part of the problem. Thank you. Merci. Et je suis ouverte à votre question. I'm open to your questions. Thank you.
Please use the raise hand function to ask your question and follow up. Please, when you are called to ask a question, to also share your media outlet. We will go ahead and start with Maggie Wilcox.
Allô, Maggie Wilcox, Radio-Canada. J'ai une question sur les langues officielles. Vous avez mentionné qu'on n'a pas de ministre aux langues officielles dans ce gouvernement. Pourquoi est-ce que c'est inquiétant pour vous et pour le parti NPD?
Merci pour votre question. C'est extrêmement inquiétant. En premier, il faut reconnaître que le français est en déclin au Canada. On s'est basé sur les dernières statistiques que c'est en déclin au Canada et au Québec, dans toutes les régions du Québec pour la première fois dans notre histoire. On sait qu'il faut faire tout ce qu'on peut au niveau fédéral pour faire face à cette attaque, pour renverser le déclin du français. Et je vous dirais qu'une mesure catastrophique, c'est d'éliminer un ministère qui a comme focus les langues officielles. On sait que pendant le gouvernement Trudeau, ils ont fait beaucoup de promotions, leur vouloir de faire avancer les langues officielles. Nous, au NPD, on a travaillé très fort pour moderniser la loi sur les langues officielles, mais je vous dirais une façon de renverser ce bon travail, le travail auquel s'attendent les francophones à travers le Canada, c'est d'éliminer le ministère spécifique et le rôle d'un ministre spécifiquement. Je vous dirais, ça envoie un message non seulement inquiétant, mais tout à fait inacceptable aux francophones du Canada et au Québec aussi.
Maggie, est-ce que tu avais une question de suivi?
Oui, j'allais aussi poser une autre question reliée à des absences de ministres. Vous avez également mentionné qu'on n'a pas de ministre dédié aux relations autochtones couronnes. C'est mélangé maintenant avec le ministère de la Justice. En quoi est-ce que ça cause un problème aussi?
Oui, c'est très problématique qu'on voit que le ministre sur les relations couronnes autochtones maintenant fait partie du département de justice. Il faut se souvenir que la raison pour laquelle il y avait deux ministères séparés, parce que pour pouvoir réaliser nos promesses de réconciliation, il faut faire un travail énorme pour rebâtir les relations. Le ministère avait comme focus les relations couronnes autochtones, avait comme focus des enjeux de long terme, les enjeux qui impliquent les traités, les accords de terre, des enjeux énormes pour les Premières Nations, les communautés métisses et inuites. Et c'est pas des enjeux qui peuvent être gérés de façon sérieuse d'un ministre de justice qui est un ministère tellement important. Le message que Mark Carney envoie aujourd'hui en remettant ce ministère dans le ministère de justice, c'est que la réconciliation n'est pas une priorité pour lui, que l'avancement sur des enjeux historiques, d'injustice historique envers les peuples autochtones n'est pas une priorité pour lui. Vraiment, il casse la legs des libéraux avant lui qui disaient que les affaires autochtones et la réconciliation étaient importants pour eux. Aujourd'hui, ces actes montrent clairement que ce n'est pas le cas pour lui, que les affaires autochtones, que les peuples autochtones et la réconciliation envers eux n'est pas une priorité du tout pour lui et pour son gouvernement.
Thank you very much. Now we'll go to Emily Haas with the Globe and Mail. Please go ahead. Emily, if you're trying to speak, we cannot hear you. Emily, we still cannot hear you. I'm sorry, Emily, we cannot hear you. I'm just going to go to the next question while we, hopefully you'll find a way to fix that. We'll go to Jonah Grignon. If you can identify your outlet, and please go ahead.
Yes, hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Hi, my name is Jonah Grignon, Glacier Farm Media. I was just wondering if I could get your specific response to the appointment of Cody Blois as the new Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food, especially just in the context of some of his past roles, like chair of the Atlantic Caucus and so forth.
Well, I think there's more to delve into in terms of what this caucus means, and I think we're seeing a number of new ministers in. What I think is the big news of today is who's out, and the fact that Karina Gould, a Liberal leadership contender, longtime cabinet minister, key player in the government, the only one that had the guts to call out Carney's agenda for what it is, conservative light, is not in the cabinet. I think that sends a very clear message to Canadians that Mark Carney's approach and Mark Carney's cabinet is not a progressive one, is not one that includes progressive voices like hers. And I would say, based on a severely shrunk cabinet and the elimination of key portfolios, including a department on regional economic development, both impacting the Atlantic and the prairies, this is a department that, or this is a government that is committed to cuts, to reducing services to Canadians, and perhaps starting with specific communities and peoples that have longstanding issues. Like I said, the elimination of a status of women department, the elimination of Crown Indigenous Relations as its own standalone ministry, the elimination of official languages as its own ministry, the elimination of a Department of Labor, a labor that a ministry that was critical in advancing long-standing issues of workers, of the labor movement. Mark Carney doesn't think any of this matters, and his government today shows that he is willing to move Canada to the right, and that he isn't there for Canadians who are struggling today and need a real progressive leadership that I would say is critical, not just to deal with the challenges we face here in our own country, but also as we stand up to the existential threat that is Donald Trump. We should be looking at how we can look out for one another, support one another, rather than looking at an agenda of cuts and a government that is willing to leave so many people out in the cold.
Thank you. I don't have any follow-up.
Perfect. We'll go down to Elizabeth Thompson with the CBC. Please go ahead.
I will unmute. Thank you very much for this. I'm actually talking about a different kind of appointment today, or asking you about a different kind of appointment. Today, we revealed that before Justin Trudeau left office and after he announced that he had resigned, they made 88 future appointments. Some of these will only take effect after the next election. It's quite similar to what Stephen Harper did on his way out, except it's twice as many, or almost twice as many. My question is, what is your reaction to this decision by Justin Trudeau's government to appoint so many people before he left office?
I think Canadians would be shocked to hear that the Liberals who decried the very same thing from Harper, spent their last hours in Parliament and looking out for their friends. In fact, making more appointments than Harper. It sounds like. I think Canadians right now. What's clear is Canadians are struggling. Canadians are very worried about the economic attack on our country by Trump. They're looking for federal leadership for workers. They're looking for federal leadership when it comes to our communities that are extremely vulnerable at this time in the face of this reality. And instead of real leadership, we're hearing that the Prime Minister spent his last hours, days in office, looking out for his Liberal friends. That really speaks to the disconnect, and I would say that sense of entitlement that we have seen from Liberals time and time again.
A follow-up question, what would you like to see happen when it comes to these appointments? As I said, some are coming into effect fairly soon. Some are as much as late as November that they will take effect, and some of them run for years. What would you like to see happen?
Well, I think it's really out of bounds to appoint people whose terms haven't even started. We're hearing obviously appointments of an extended period of time, years at a time. This is I think obviously we in the NDP have a real problem with this approach, and I know we'll be taking key action. I think we're obviously going to have to discuss sort of this more recent development that's come to light, and decide on how we ask the current Liberal government under the new Prime Minister to roll back some of these appointments, certainly the ones that haven't started, and to deal with this very clear reality that once again they're spending their energy looking out for their Liberal friends, making sure that they're okay, including in terms of economic security, when in fact the absolute priority should be Canadians' well-being, Canadian workers, Canadian communities who are facing an unprecedented economic attack by Donald Trump. This isn't the time for partisan games. This isn't the time for partisan appointments. This is the time for all hands to be on deck and to spend all the energy we have defending Canadian workers and Canadian communities that are under threat by Donald Trump and his economic war on our country.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for one last question with Emily Haas with the Globe and Mail. Please go ahead. Emily, you're cutting out a little bit. I'm sorry, Emily, we can't hear you. It seems that we have a technical difficulty, Emily. Maybe we can touch base after. So this concludes our press conference. Ceci conclut notre conférence de presse. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you.